Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Robert Young, and I'm with one of my patients. We're talking about his name is Mike. And Mike, just so I pronounce your name correctly, I know it's spelled Linam.
Yeah, it's line them, like line them up.
Like line them up. I just wanted to make sure I pronounced that correctly. Because I really get upset when somebody mispronounces my last name,
Sure.
it says old instead of young. No, that's other people have said I'll never get old because I'll always be young. So anyway, a little pun for you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you asked a question about what's behind me, and what's behind me is a colorized electron microscope. It's called a micrograph, an electron microscope micrograph showing fibrin. Fibrin is a protein that's activated in acidity or in an injury. The purpose of the activation, they're called clotting factors. In fact, there's 13 of them. Factor 7 is the one that's most important because it's what produces fibrinogen and then fibrin. But fibrin cross-links and forms a clot. And that's exactly what you're seeing here is a clot. And the red, which has been colorized, because electron microscopes do not take color pictures, just for your information. They're all in black and white. So we have to colorize these pictures to make them more distinguishable between the fibrous material and the cellular material. Well, anyway, red blood cells are not red, they're actually blue. It's when they hit oxygen is when they turn red. Mm-hmm. But inside your body, they're blue. They're basically blue. So bottom line here is this is is associated with pathological blood coagulation. Pathological blood coagulation can be triggered by electromagnetic fields, by radiation fields. So if you're exposed to, let's say, microwaves, from microwave towers to microwave oven in your office or at your home, you're being exposed to about 2.4 gigahertz of energy. And this energy is a force that can be disruptive to the frequency of your own body cells and organs, etc. So electrical magnetic fields can be chaotic to our own system. So the idea is to provide some sort of resonance or some sort of balance whereby cells can stay within their resonant frequency, within their frequency, by being reinforced by a healthy environment chemically, and that's an alkaline environment, or being removed from, let's say, a toxic environment, which would be like air pollution, or that contains various micro and nanoparticulates like titanium oxide or trioxide, hydrogen arsenic, carbon monoxide. These are things that can trigger the clotting cascade that can form these clots that then, yes, the purpose of the clotting is to prevent internal bleeding and healing. If you cut yourself, this cascade of clotting factors takes place to fibrinogen, to fibrin, and then it cross-links and forms these clots. I see these in the blood all the time. And in looking at them, I always see them in those who have serious health challenges. So, and those who are being exposed to either chemical poisons or electromagnetic poison, or if they're being exposed to water pollution, like, for example, fluoride or chlorines or chloramines in the water. These chemicals can, if they build up in our systems, can activate the clotting factor. So these are three of the major contributing factors are electrical fields, magnetic fields, chemical poisoning, air pollution, light pollution, sound pollution. All of these can contribute to triggering the clotting factors that can then, food pollution, I mentioned water pollution. These are all contributing factors to what many people experience, particularly if they don't have their channels of elimination open. So when I'm working with you or others, I'm trying to encourage you to keep your eliminations, or I keep your fluids flowing and your elimination organs open, because we're all exposed to these electromagnetic fields, which are highly chaotic to the frequencies of our cells. And this is based upon a study that Dr. Beverly Rubik and I conducted in London in 1999. It was then published in a peer-reviewed journal in 2001, showing the effects of those who were being exposed to radiation in an edit bay at BBC, saw before and after pictures of that exposure, saw these clotting factors activated, saw cellular degeneration, saw the corona effect, which is the deterioration of the membrane, saw the loss of hemoglobin due to radiation poisoning, ionizing or non-ionizing radiation. But those frequencies that are ranging from anywhere from 4 or 5 megahertz up to, now they're talking about 30 megahertz, which really hasn't been turned on yet, because many of us feel the symptoms of 2.4 megahertz, which is microwave. And some of the symptoms are lightheadedness, dizziness, loss of hearing, loss of coordination. It suppresses the astrocytes in the brainstem to maintain homeostasis. So it could be from carbon dioxide poisoning, carbon monoxide poisoning, wearing of the mask, which creates a barrier for the release of carbon dioxide or for proper respiration to take place. And that can cause hypoxia, leading to what's behind me, which is pathological blood coagulation. A lot of people really don't know this, but red blood cells have to go into the lungs and dump their carbon dioxide in the alveoli and then pick up oxygen, and they have to do that one red blood cell at a time. Blood cannot go into the lungs in groups. It doesn't happen. And this is why we're seeing blood clots in a variety of different places in all autopsies of those that theoretically passed on from a phantom virus known as the novel coronavirus, or COVID-2, which is the same thing as COVID-19. So it's all the same thing.
Right.
But this is what I've attributed the pathology to these symptoms, which are associated with high altitude sickness. When the body can't get rid of its waste, it induces a fever. So flu is not a disease. It's the body's forced expulsion of a buildup of waste that's not being properly eliminated. And so when you have constipation, it could be the bowel, constipation of the kidneys, constipation of the liver, constipation of the lung, and things aren't flowing, the channels of elimination, which is urination, perspiration, defecation, and respiration, if these are restricted, things build up, and then you go into this alarming situation where the body starts chelating these wastes by taking calcium ions from your bones or magnesium from your muscle, and you end up with blood stones, brain stones, breast stones, any stone is the precursor to any serious degenerative disease. So in Alzheimer's, there's always stones. You'll find stones in the brain. These are crystallizations of excess acids that are not being properly eliminated out through the elimination organs. So when you're looking at something that now is, I think you'll be happy to hear this, is the formation of a scientific committee that has probably combined, over 100 years of experience dealing with everything from so-called bacterial infections, fungal infections. I say infections because it's born within us, it's not coming from the outside. It's not an infection from, it doesn't come in the body, it comes out of the cell. So bacteria and yeast are manifestations of cellular breakdown. Exosomes are manifestations of cellular breakdown, and the body's in an alarming situation trying to protect itself. And that's why one of the articles that were published just a few months ago in Italy of the autopsies that were done on those who had succumbed to the so-called novel coronavirus, they were finding clots throughout the entire body. So they were in what is called disseminated intravascular coagulation, or DIC, and that's what you see behind me. This is the culprit of the symptomologies, which then forces the body to try to expel these wastes out through the pores of the skin. So this is what causes night sweats. This is what causes morning sickness. It's the body's forced expulsion. When we overindulge in alcohol or sugar, and we end up raising our body temperature, the body's doing that, and the part of the body is the central nervous system, particularly in the brainstem, a control center called the nucleus totalis solitarius astrocytes. This is a group of brain cells, a bundle of cells, which controls all the biochemistry, the temperature, even from the beating of your heart. This is suppressed when you've had head bang injuries. This is suppressed when you wear a mask. This is suppressed when you eat acidic foods, beef, chicken, pork, or when you eat dairy products and you increase the acid loads, it suppresses. And so the brain can't release itself when you're not sleeping because you're stressed. And so you're staying up at night, you're building acids in the cranial area. Body needs rest so it can then shrink. The brain shrinks and pushes all this waste out through what is called the lymphatic system. Not the lymphatic, it dumps it into the lymphatic system so it can be eliminated. But it's coming from the interstitial fluids of the brain, okay, into the lymphatic system, to the lymphatic system, and then out through the pores of the skin. So any night sweats, any increase in temperature, which is definitely the case with anyone with cancer. That's why people who have cancer, want ice water. They want something very cold to cool their body down. They're trying to cool it down, but the body's heating that temperature up to remove waste product because there's a dam in the bowel, there's a dam in the kidneys, things aren't flowing. And if you keep putting garbage in, then this is what happens. So this committee is going to be studying a man-made, in fact, Clifford, I won't reveal his last name at this particular junction, but he's been studying this now for 20 years. He's tried to get the attention of politicians. He's tried to get the attention of scientists. Finally, he's come together to say, look, I've done all that I can. I've done 20 years of research on chemical trails, on chemical poisoning, on a, should we call it a genetic matter called Morgellons that is living but not living, is synthetic but has what appears to be biological and also has genetics. One of the things that we are going to be doing is we are going to be testing doing DNA testing to map out that. And of course, one of the scientists who's going to be working with this is Judy Mikovits, to help with the genetic sequencing of Morgellons. Now, this has never been done.
Yeah.
This has never been done. So I thought you might be interested in that and be quite excited that this is the course of action that we're moving towards now, is to not just identify something under the microscope as something that may be transhuman, something that may be genetic and synthetic that has been bound together, something that has been taken from the chemical trails that are being spewed in the major cities around the world, from Los Angeles, even from Valley Center to San Diego to Houston, which is a huge dumping area. I wonder why they're doing so much of this in these particular areas. But these are the high population areas, and this can enter into the respiratory system and potentially can cause a variety of different symptoms that are also associated with the so-called coronavirus. But this is biological as well as synthetic, and anything that's introduced to the body, you either cough or you throw up or you have diarrhea or you have increased mucus to neutralize it, or your white cells go up. These are all defensive mechanisms to try to deal with anything that comes in from the outside world to buffer that. But managing and maintaining that delicate pH balance of the interstitial fluids, of the largest organ of the body, which contains compartments of these interstitial fluids that hold the waste until it can be distributed out through the elimination organs. And that's why it's so critical to keep the elimination organs open if you're going to prevent serious health challenges. So I do have the vial that you gave me, that you sent. I do that. It's right here in my hand. Okay. So I do have that. I have not yet examined this, but I will be examining this anatomically as well as biochemically. I will also submit it for genetic sequencing so that we can, but here again, we have 20 years of research of identifying this, but one of the missing links is the genetic sequencing of this particular trans microorganism that is here again for whatever reasons, for whatever purpose. I've heard everything from weather control to eugenics. Here again, whatever the intention is, I have no connection to that whatsoever. My purpose
Well, I can't tell you how excited I am to hear that y'all are going to run these types of tests, because that is the frustration of all the people out here that are looking at all of this. There's all these websites and radio talk show hosts. There's people that have made movies of it.
That's
analyzed it.
Yeah, I got to take it out of the conspiracy theory to the conspiracy fact.
Right.
Yeah. So once we get to conspiracy facts, this is, well, don't confuse me with the facts. And there's a lot of people like that, because it may change my belief system. So, I see no evil, I hear no evil, I speak no evil, la, 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 la. It's necessary for us as scientists to find out what is coming, what is these trans microorganisms, what are their genetic makeup, what is their synthetic makeup, what are we dealing here, and are these the same things that I'm seeing in the blood and seeing in the respiratory fluids? And this has to be sequenced. So
Well,
once we sequence that, that doesn't necessarily prove anything per se. I mean, it proves something that it's either human, or animal, or a combination of human, animal, and synthetic. I mean, it's so that's the point. From that, here again, as far as carrying out experiments based on Rivers' postulates or Koch's postulates, that would require, involving, possibly the FDA as far as doing trial studies on these. I don't know that the government's going to allow us to do this. I just don't know. I mean, I don't know, right now there's some confusion of, who are, friendly and who are unfriendly as it relates to getting to the basis, even not of just Morgellons, which has been a conversation for several decades. I wrote several articles in the 90s and was asked not to write about these things. And so I haven't written since the 90s. Clifford's come forward with more research, and because of the nature and the environment and the desperate situation that's going on right now, trying to understand some of these symptomologies and tying them to some sort of microorganism, some sort of virology type, virus type theory. Here again, it's not been proven, even with HIV, even with Ebola, even with the Spanish flu, catastrophe that took place due to possible, here again, even Fauci says that they really haven't isolated any virus but they did autopsies, on the bodies of those who died in 1918 from what was called the Spanish flu epidemic. They did genetic runs on this, and they came to the conclusion it was bacterial pneumonia. It wasn't viral. Well,
right.
bacteria is a cellular breakdown product, just as yeast is, where pneumonia, pneumocystis, is related to yeast. These are byproducts of cellular breakdown that I'm suggesting behind me that you see, pathological blood coagulation, which is brought on through electrical radiation poisoning. So, well, back in 19, what was the radiation then? What was introduced in 1918? It was radio waves. And so radio waves was the introduction, something that the human body had to adapt to. I don't know that it ever does. I mean, how do you adapt to cigarette smoking? It either eventually kills you quickly or it kills you over time. So all of these chaotic, toxic frequencies, even though we don't want to rock the cart here, particularly since there's trillions of dollars invested now. But these are not things known just to me. They're known by our government. They're known by the Chinese. They're known by the Russians. I mean, there's no ignorance here. They know the effects of radio frequencies, magnetic electrical fields at a pulsating frequency of 2.4 gigahertz. I don't know that the human population could withstand, what they're talking about when they're suggesting the Internet of Things, where these frequencies, pulsating frequencies, will go up to 300 gigahertz. I don't know that life can exist in that type of environment. So not only are they going to kill us, but they're going to kill themselves by, bathing the environment in pollution. There's a domino effect here. So it's not like they're immune to it. I mean, we can try to reinforce our bodies and protect it by creating an outside residence, which was created by an associate scientist of mine, called the capacitator. Kind of like the same thing that you put in a car to run it, this capacitator, without drawing any life force energy from outside itself, it actually produces its own life force energy. So this can be shown, and it has been shown, and publishing papers, not myself, but Nassim is publishing papers on this. Now, what does that do? Well, it's kind of like your watch many years ago. Now that people are looking at their cell phones for the time, they use crystals, and this is a tetrahedron crystal, as you can see this, and when you wear this, it acts as a tuning fork to amplify and protect your own vibrational frequency. So when I put this close to my body, not only is it emitting energy, life force energy, which is measurable, but it also, I could set it next to my water and it'll actually increase the electrical activity. It'll ionize the water, and it'll also increase the pH of the water. So by itself producing its own energy. Now we did this with plasma, and showed, of course, the Russians and the US are very aware of plasma as a source of energy, even to the point of using it to knock out satellites. So, or to knock out an incoming nuclear missile. This is within, scientific circles using plasma. When I was working with two scientists that were working in the United States with the university, in this case UCLA, they introduced me to the technology of plasma and how it would increase the yields of food by 300%, or preserve the food for months longer. And we did studies on cows, which increased their production of milk. We did studies on food, and we increased it by threefold. So plants that were 1 foot high, these plants were 3 to 5 feet high. So everything was growing better, it was healthier, it was stronger, because it was receiving this light force energy coming that was emitted from this plasma reactor. So this technology is not new, but it's the wave of the future. So when we go back to a lot of our sci-fi movies, we start seeing, Beam Me Up, Scotty, or from Star Trek, or we start seeing Back to the Future, and the crazy professor is using a capacitor. I think that's what it's called.
Flux capacitor.
What is it called?
A flux capacitor.
Yeah, it's a flux capacitor. That's the flux capacitor. That's what this is. This is a flux capacitor. And I mean that seriously. I'm not making this up. So the wave of the future is to use sources of energy that generate from nowhere else its own source of energy. This is the wave of the future. To power your car, to light your house, and this research is going on right now. Now, for protecting our own vibrational frequencies, and using this as a tuning fork to resonate with our own body cells and reinforce that frequency and protect it, even though we've got chaotic frequencies around us and we're living in a soup of frequencies that are highly destructive. We can survive and thrive within those environments if we protect ourselves.
Well, so hey, Doc, I want to make sure we use our time wisely here.
Yes.
What I wanted to hit today was kind of get you to give me kind of a recap of, if you have the information in front of you or whatever, but about my situation, my health situation, and kind of.
Well, I mean, I can bring that up, or we can talk about. You can ask me a question, and I can speak to it. I can speak to it directly.
So the reason my health journey led to you was because I was having these back problems
Okay.
and continual back pain, and my back would slip out of place. I figured out from a friend that I was suffering from acidosis. So I started doing the alkaline diet and drinking baking soda, and that resolved it. Then got your alkaline diet chart and started eating that way and doing the supplements and stuff. I lost about 15 pounds,
Yeah, I
and
can see it. Yeah, I can see that you've lost weight. Yes.
I don't have any no back issues whatsoever ever since that. Okay, so I've fixed that kind of acid balance that was causing that
Mm-hmm.
acute problem. But as you guys found in my meeting with you, that I had an enlarged prostate,
Yeah.
but you
So,
pointed.
the shrinking, the only way that we can really know if the prostate has been enlarged because of inflammation and the retention of acid, which is retained within the interstitial fluids of any tissue, because the interstitial fluid is the environment which cells live in. Cells live in a body of water, so the prostate is saturated within its own interstitial fluid. So when you start changing the fluid, kind of like changing the oil of your car, then things start normalizing. So yeah, I mean, you look great, Mike. I mean, it's, I can tell that you've taken this very, very serious, and you've actually on your own, by following the instructions of how to take care of your body manual that you received when you were born, right? Oh, you didn't
Yeah,
get that.
right.
You didn't get that manual from your parents? Oh,
No.
well, I had to write it. It's called the pH Miracle, right?
Yeah.
So that's the manual for the human body. So when you start testing your urine, let me ask you this: what is the urine pH now?
Well, so let me back you up a little bit. I came and I saw you. Everything went. You gave me all the recommendations and everything, and I did a lot of it, but it's so much stuff that I'm
Yeah,
like, and I just
yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's
It's so
it's
much
a
stuff.
lot.
The reason,
And
the reason
so
those are, yeah,
I
the
find
reason, yeah, the reason I outline that is
I find myself doing some of it.
yeah, the ones within the top 10 or
Go
15
ahead.
things, like for example, the testing of the urine pH and making sure that the pH stays above 7.4. That's critical if you have an enlarged prostate, because as that continues, ideally to climb up into the 8s and 8.4, this is when you start seeing shrinkage, and we see this within 2 weeks. So if you were to come back and Dr. Magalka was to do an ultrasound, I would be willing to say that you would find a good result in a shrinkage or normalization that's caused by excess acidity. It causes that inflammation and that prostate enlargement. This has been characteristic of the program, is a normalization of any tissue, of any organ or any gland. The only way that we would know that is if you went to your local medical doctor and had him do an examination, but you could possibly ask him if they'd be willing to do a ultrasound to check the size. He can check it physically, okay, the size. So if you don't have a doctor, then you would have to make another trip, and we would just focus on that one aspect.
See, that's the kind of the problem I ran into, is that I when I went to see you guys, y'all seemed alarmed that my prostate was like giant. But then I came home and I was already doing what you would, the alkaline diet to some degree, and some of the supplements that you gave me. That when I got home, I scheduled this appointment with this urologist, and he told me that my prostate was not all that enlarged from a physical exam. And then we had a rectal sonogram done, and he said it's not. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit, but it's not a lot. And so then I became.
Well, what does the report say? I mean, you received your report from Dr. Magalko and the radiologist that actually looked at it, because the two doctors look at this.
Well, he gave me on the sonogram. There's prostate volume 15.25 centimeters. The prostate height was 1.82 centimeters, and the prostate width was 4.47. So he says, that's not, a big thing, but I'm having symptoms to where I can feel that my prostate is, kind of squeezing down. And you guys, or she saw on her sonogram that it was enlarged.
Well, what was the size that she put down? And here again, it was reviewed. It's viewed by a radiologist. So we have two people look at this. It's not just one person.
Yeah. Well, I don't have that report from her right in front of me.
Okay. Well, if you want to share, if you want to share that with me, here again, I trust her examination and her results explicitly, 100%. I've seen so many.
Yeah, but it's really neither here nor there. I don't want to try to disprove her or anything. I know I've got a problem. I know it.
Okay, well, the best way to.
And so I wanted to just find out from you on this list of things, that you sent me. I want to focus on the most important ones.
Okay.
For the prostate.
Exactly. So the most important ones is number one. In fact, it's listed as number one on your list. Right? You can read it. It says L-arginine.
L-arginine?
Yeah, L-arginine max in a glass of purified or deionized water at 250 mLs, one scoop, which is approximately 10 grams, taking it 4 times a day. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I see that here. Okay.
Okay.
And
So I put that
getting
number
that circulation going.
Yeah. The reason I put that number one is because any inflammation in the body is the body's inability to remove it. And so that's a circulatory problem. It also suppresses the astrocytes in the brainstem. So that affects the central nervous system. And blood follows chi, so it follows energy. So I have to get circulation moving, at the same time, elimination. So one of the things that I suggest there is rectal infusions. And the rectal infusions is colon hydrotherapy, where you actually infuse distilled water that combines the L-arginine, that combines the purify, which raises the pH of that fluids, anally into the rectum, so that when it hits, these fluids hit the rectum, you can either do a colonic or you can do an enema. When it hits the rectum, that those fluids go immediately, through hydrostatic pressure, goes into the hemorrhoidal vein and into the vascular system, into the liver, neutralizing any excess acidity there. But that's very close. In fact, it's right there sitting. You've got your bladder and underneath that, you've got your prostate. So it's all there. So when you're infusing rectally, these infusions of alkalinity, even using the 4 salts, and I give you the recipe there.
Mm-hmm.
So the recipe can either be administered orally, where you're taking 4 salts, anytime that your pH drops below 7.4, and the ideal pH would be at 8.4. And you're testing the urine because the urine is a specific fluid that's coming from the largest organ of the body, the interstitium. These are interstitial fluids from the interstitium. So it's very important to keep that number high. Okay, now you've lost a lot of weight. You feel pressure there. If there's frequent urination, having to get up at night, then yes, this is a sign that the prostate is enlarged, and I need to have you consider having someone who has been doing this for 40 years that's specialized in it. I mean, you know how doctors specialize? There's no specialty in sonography. I mean, they have people that, used to be, doing other professions, and they didn't have to go to school for another 3 to 4 years to actually specialize in non-invasive diagnostics. But that's
I'm not questioning her. I know it's swollen. I don't want to get into, I don't think it's, I think the day that I went, he didn't think it was swollen enough for me to be, it's not what, like these old men that he sees that are just so swollen up that it's squeezing off their urine flow or whatever.
Yeah, but if you want to get it back to normal,
yes.
And you still haven't told me what the volume was of his test.
The prostate volume was 15.25 centimeters.
No, those are the diameters. That's not the volume. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have to check with Dr. Galena specifically on the volume. But bottom line is, if you want to get the inflammation down,
yes,
you have to increase the L-arginine max. And the L-arginine max helps circulation, specifically with L-arginine, L-ornithine, and L-citrulline, anti-inflammatory of magnesium chloride, with vitamin D, vitamin K1, resveratrol, and pycnogenol, which are antioxidants.
And that's all in the arginine max?
That's all in the arginine. It's like 15 different formulas in one formulation, which are synergistic with the purpose of reducing inflammation anywhere in the body. So it's not just going to reduce inflammation in the prostate. It will reduce inflammation in the liver, in the thyroid, in the brain, etc.
Okay, so number 1, we can do that. What about number 2? Is that one something that will help with the prostate?
Number 2 is probably 4 salts. That is testing your urine in the morning, or anytime you urinate. If the pH is below 7.4, you take 1 scoop in 250 mLs of distilled or deionized water, and you drink that. But you always take it regardless, once in the morning and once before going to bed. If you're having any sort of acid reflux or an upset stomach, then you can take the capsules. So you take 4 capsules at a time to neutralize the hydrochloric acid. But anytime you feel any upset in the stomach, that indicates that you're in an inflammatory condition, that the pH of the blood, more so the interstitial fluids, is elevated. And to reduce the lactic acid or to reduce the citric acid, you have to reduce the hydrochloric acid, which is a waste product of sodium bicarbonate production. So there you take the 4 salts, which is a combined synergistic formulation of electrolytes in a compound of bicarbonate, sodium potassium bicarbonate, And these are the elements that the body makes, specifically the stomach, in order to manage and maintain the alkaline design. And the general over this regulation of alkalinity is the central nervous system, and specifically the astrocytes in the brainstem. So wearing a mask is not going to help you. It's going to suppress that activity. Having the right pillow, getting the right rest, minimizing stress. These cells are very sensitive to acidity, and that's what activates the stomach lining to begin producing sodium bicarbonate, and why people have an upset stomach when they're upset. They're upset because when you're upset, that's a feeling that generally is emoted, which is called an emotion, which requires life force energy. And the stomach activates when you're running, when you're lifting weights, if you're overthinking, the stomach has to produce the sodium bicarbonate. So this, if not the first, the second most important thing to do is manage your internal swimming pool fluids. Manage that pH. I can't say anything that's less or more significant. That's more significant than managing the biochemistry of the fluids of the body by simply testing the urine. Will provide relief of any irritation, inflammation, induration, ulceration, or even degeneration. It is the solution to the pollution.
So the key on that is obviously follow the pH diet, alkaline diet, your chart, but also you're supplementing with these three things that we just talked about: the 4 salts, the rectal infusions, and the arginine max.
Yeah. Those are. If somebody were to do that on a daily basis, it's kind of like owning a swimming pool. If you're checking the pH of the swimming pool and making sure you're keeping the pH up, and if it's not up, then you shock it. They call it shocking. You put alkaline buffers in there. Mm-hmm. Guess what? The pool's always going to be clean, because when you're clean, you're serene and you're lean. And so you must be doing something right, because you seem serene and you seem lean, but a healthy lean, not, oh man, this guy looks sickly. He looks like he's feeding on his own flesh. No, you don't look that way.
Okay. What about the rest of these items here?
Well, one that's the number 4 one on the list of what we're doing is the men's support.
Okay.
Now, the reason for the men's support is it's been designed specifically to help support with the vitamins and minerals that it needs, like also that's in the L-arginine, B3 niacinamide, which helps to improve circulation. So I would suggest the men's support.
Okay.
And then the 5th one would be the flush. If you're having any type of congestion or constipation, or if you're not eliminating the bowel at least minimum 3 times a day, then you need some extra help. So that particular formulation with some herbs contains magnesium oxide and magnesium citrate. And these will help to break up any undigested food. Now, talking about food, we grow up, when we start out in life, we're healthy and strong and feeling good unless we've been vaccinated, then that may not be the case, but generally babies are healthy and they don't eat solid food. And during that first 9 months, they're on a liquid diet, okay? And what happens during those 9 months? A tremendous amount of development takes place in the first 9 months. What happens to a baby when the baby starts getting sick is when you start feeding the baby solid food. Because we have this idea, and it's just an idea that only exists on a piece of paper. And the idea is that our stomach digests food. That's totally false. Stomach doesn't digest anything. fact, its main purpose is to alkalize and to produce alkalizing compounds to manage the internal swimming pools of our body, the oceans, the rivers, and streams. So when we get to that understanding, that we realize that if we don't take the time to relax and chew our food, that whatever state it's in, if we swallow a piece of food that is partially, let's say, partially digested with our teeth, then we can say that any of those particulates within that food become problematic and they cannot provide any benefit whatsoever, because the stomach doesn't digest food, the pancreas doesn't digest food, the gallbladder doesn't digest food, the pylorus glands don't digest food. The small intestine is not a place for digesting food. That's the place for building stem cells and regenerating our blood so that we can build new body cells. So the bottom line here is, if you're not going to take the time because you're in a rush, because you're a busy guy, right? Then you're going to have to get one of those blenders. And if you have a salad, look, salads are great, but they can be just as toxic if you're eating them fast and not chewing them. And it's hard to break up fibrous material. So you have to blend it. So you take your salad, you put it in a blender and you drink it, and you're going to feel 100% better, and you're going to get stronger by doing that. And I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking to myself, because that's when breakfast is so good. Breakfast is so good was when you take avocado and cucumbers and spinach leaves, and you add in almond milk, not nuts, but almond or macadamia, and you make a smoothie, and you eat that. You can get more into your stomach by doing that without having to, literally have it go into a toxic situation, to trying to get rid of this food. So that's kind of where we are right now with that. So anytime you can eat your food that's already been broken down, pre-digested by juicing or pureeing, you're going to feel better. You're going to have a better result. And so I've actually said a couple of things. To help your elimination, you can use flush. There's an encapsulated form of that that you can take, 4 to 6 capsules, morning and just before going to bed. But this can be very helpful to you if that's a problem. So, we don't need to go much past that. I mean, if you want to protect yourself and your lungs, since you live in Houston or Dallas?
I'm at actually a little small town outside of Austin.
Oh, okay, Austin. Okay. Well, I don't know what the pollution is, but the pollution is the fourth largest. Well, it's the number 4 leading cause of death in the world is air pollution. Okay. Mm-hmm. The first leading cause of death is iatrogenic, taking drugs and doctor's errors. It kills over 750, 800,000 people a year. Where cancer only kills, this is in the United States, only kills maybe 500 to 600. Heart disease, and then you've got cancer. So cancer is number 3. Heart disease is number 2, and medical error and overdosing with drugs is number 1 killer in the world. So the number 4 is air pollution. I mean, not the coronavirus. Yeah, it's totally ridiculous, especially when it hasn't even been isolated, cultured and introduced into a new host to produce the same symptoms. It's just unfortunate, that we have to, turn virology, which it is, into a religion, which it is. You have to believe in this because there's no scientific evidence of the whole science of virology. So it needs to be dismantled. The other things that need to be dismantled is that your stomach digests food. It doesn't. Get over it. The third thing you have to dismantle is that embryonic cells, stem cells, are produced in the marrow. Now, that's only if you're starving to death. They're produced in the crypts of the small intestine. That's the primary site with an alkaline environment to produce healthy embryonic cells at 8.4. That's the pH of the intestine, 8.4. So that 8.4 keeps coming up. I want to see it in the urine, I want to see it in the sweat, but that here again, you have to literally be conscious, and understand why you're doing this, because if you don't, why would you do anything if you didn't understand it? You're doing you're trying to provide an environment that's conducive for thriving, not surviving.
Okay, so I've got your top things that I should focus on.
That's
for
it.
the prostate.
Yeah. Now, if you have a respiratory problem, then you've got to start nebulizing. But that's just another entry point to get some of this alkalinity into our body. And that's if you're having trouble, with getting your pH up.
Well, so let me ask you about the nebulizing just real quick. I know that that's some great product there. But the nebulizer I had, it didn't seem like when I poured in the medicine, like you told me to do 5 milliliters of
these are nutrients, but they're antioxidants. 5 mLs of glutathione and 5 mLs of N-acetylcysteine. These are natural to the human cell. You breathe that in. Yeah.
Supposed to fully I lost you for a second there. When I turn on the nebulizer, is it supposed to all kind of evaporate out of there, or?
Yeah, if you have the right nebulizer, I don't know what nebulizer you have, but if you have the right nebulizer, it'll actually create a mist, and all of that will be gone in about 20 minutes.
Do you have a brand that you recommend by chance?
Well, we could talk about that offline, but yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, but that is supposed to get used up.
Yeah, within about 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay. Okay. And then, tell me what the ginger turmeric tea will do for me.
That's just something that will help you sleep. It's they're two very powerful antioxidants. It's in a powdered form, in a juice form. The turmeric is juiced, and then the water is extracted. So all you have is just the pure ginger and the pure turmeric. It's the same with the chlorophyll. If you want to build hemoglobin, then you add the I-juice chlorophyll, or you add the super greens, and you put that into water and you drink that. The purpose there is for building blood, which is one of the major aspects of the pH Miracle protocol. Is number one, open up the channels of elimination. 2, hyperperfuse alkalinity into the fluids, improve circulation, build healthy blood, which then in turn builds healthy body cells. And then you've got to open up the channels of elimination if you're going to start infusing more alkalinity, and so things are moving and exiting.
Well, on that chlorophyll, that's a little teeny tiny scoop in there, right?
That is. It's called a microscoop. It's about 250 milligrams, and you only have to put 1 or 2 scoops in there. That's it.
Okay, so when it says 1 scoop, you're talking about the little mini scoop.
Yeah, that's a microscoop. Yeah, it's 250 milligrams or less. Yeah, it's very small. This is a concentrate. It's 100-to-1 concentrate of mulberry leaf. I mean, it's the only pure chlorophyll that I know of in the world. Bottom line is that all the professional athletes that we have taking this stuff, they love it because it builds their hemoglobin, builds their red blood count, from 14 to 15 up to 17 and a half. And that's really the difference in endurance, is being able to have healthy, free-flowing blood that is very strong in hemoglobin, and building hemoglobin for improved oxygenation is critical. So the L-arginine becomes part of the professional's protocol to improve circulation and to build healthy blood, because you're building blood at 5 million red blood cells per second. So
let me ask you the next one, the nutrient bridge.
Nutrient bridge here again is for the prostate. The nutrient bridge contains 250 milligrams of zinc, and zinc will raise the pH of not only the body fluids, but also the cell. And if you're taking that in combination with these other supplements, you're going to get a tremendous amount of benefit from this, where most people will be expulsing, literally pushing acid out through the various orifices of the body from overindulging in the holiday season. This may be a little bit different, but if you have a lot of stress, like many people have had because of the quarantine, taking extra zinc is very important for everyone. Of course, that zinc is in the men's formula, but this is added zinc to help reduce any acid loads in the intracellular fluids. So you've got drops like the pH drops and the purified drops, which you put in the water. What you're doing is you're upping the ante of electrons within that water and supporting the white blood cells in their effort to maintain cleanliness by reducing acidity, by supporting them in their efforts to clean up the biologicals that may be coming from the air, man-made or otherwise, injected or otherwise, to help clean up the pollution to your solution. That's the key to health, is to manage and maintain the solutions of your body, and keep these pollutions, either metabolic, environmental, dietary, or respiratory, moving out of the various orifices. And this is how you improve the quality and quantity of your life.
Now, what about the activated oxygen?
The activated oxygen is just another powerful antioxidant. Unlike, let's say, the prime pH, which is singlet oxygen, or O minus, the activated oxygen is O3. It's not O2, it's O3. So the prime pH releases 2 atoms of Nacean oxygen, where O3 releases 1 atom of Nacean oxygen. This may be something you can add, but it looks like you're doing so well, it's not necessarily something you have to have, unless we were dealing with a serious health challenge, a ulceration or a degenerative condition.
Well, I'm kind of asking for a friend as well. Like, so you remember I told you that my dad just had to have a catheter inserted, and he's having to carry this urine bag around with him. He's actually the reason this happened, his feet were getting all swollen up.
Well, that's a circulation problem.
Well, yeah. So they let it, he's carrying this bag around. He's lost 14 pounds from just getting the catheter. And so his blood pressure was high. Now he doesn't have high blood pressure.
Well, yeah, because now waste is coming out through urination. You need to test the urine and make sure it's at least 7.4 or higher. And then from there, include in the 4 salts, and include, especially if you're going to take 4 salts, you have to take the L-arginine max to keep improving that circulation. But here again, I'm flying a little bit blind, because I'm just working off symptomologies rather than really understanding what his anatomy, physiology, and functionality of his body's actually at. And I personally don't trust the doctors, because they're only looking at 10 to 20% of the information. And I have said we have to look at 100% of the information to understand, the treatment protocols.
Well, what I told him is, I'm like, Dad, look, here's what's going to happen. They're going to have you come back in. They're going to have you they're going to go the reverse. He told me this. They're going to go the reverse way, and they're going to fill his bladder back up with fluid, and they're going to see if he can pee on his own. And then, because his prostate is so swollen around his urethra that he can't eliminate the urine. And so I don't know what they're thinking is going to change over the next 2 weeks of him wearing this bag. But, if something doesn't improve, they're talking about different things they can do. And one of them is, the Roto-Rooter, where they go in and they they remove tissue of your prostate. And I said,
Yeah,
Dad,
that's
you don't want to do that.
yeah, that's a choice. Is it necessary? Absolutely not. But I can't say that with 100. I can say that with about 98, 99% certainty. It's that 1%. I mean, I already know what I'm going to see from from the other doctors who are part of the team they're going to be looking at this. But here again, his number one product that's going to help improve circulation and elimination and provide antioxidants and anti-inflammatories, for his particular condition, which is basically not unique. It's just a level of acidity because it's just one disease and one sickness, which is the overacidification of the blood and then interstitial fluids due to an inverted way of living, eating, and thinking. So if he doesn't change his diet, we're not going to get the result we need. You have to change the diet.
And to your point, he is going to, I mean, would you agree with the fact, and now I know he's not your patient or anything like that, but I'm just saying, would you agree that if you have a swollen prostate to that point, you've got to do all the things that we just talked about, and you have to stop drinking coffee?
Well, look, I mean, we all have our favorite acids, I mean, and every day people drop acid, they go to Starbucks, and I would change the B to an F, if you know what I'm talking about. I mean, if you have to go, to a coffee shop to become, awake to what's going on in your life, something's absolutely wrong. I mean, a good night's rest, waking up to alkalinity, in the form of a green shake, and really empowering your body to thrive rather than survive, rather than slapping yourself or hitting yourself in the face. Coffee is a major contributor to cancer. I call it a cup of cancer. I don't call it a cup of coffee. You cannot get out of an inflammatory degenerative condition if you're eating coffee. And that goes for coffee enemas too. So whoever came up with that idea probably had some shares in some, coffee shop or something. But the bottom line is that coffee is not a solution to the pollution. It is pollution. It
is straight acid, right?
Well, it's not straight acid. That would be vinegar or hydrochloric acid. Yeah. And so that's another healing remedy that doesn't make any sense to me either. But let's say it didn't make any sense. It doesn't prove out in any of the functionality, physiological, or anatomical tests. You don't get better by eating more vinegar. So somebody says, well, what about lemon? Lemon is an electron donator, so it actually contributes to potassium bicarbonate in excess of its acid pH. pH is in relationship to whether it donates electrons or donates protons. And in the case with vinegar, it's a proton donor, which means it's highly acidic, or hydrogen donor. In the case of lemons, they're an electron donor. So they donate alkalinity to the body. And this is the basis of my work for the last, 35, 40 years, studying the effects of food on not just the anatomy, but the physiology and functionality. So you need to ask your dad this question. Are you willing to change your diet? Because you're not, you're going to not get the result you want to get. And there's no solution to the pollution by using pollution. Using disease to cure disease does not work. I mean, look at the statistics and the success of treating prostate cancer with disease. You can't use chemicals that are poisonous. You can't use poison to cure a disease. You have to use a whole system that addresses the underlying problem. And the problem of 95% of all sickness and disease is caused by what you eat, what you drink, what you breathe, what you think, what you feel, and what you believe. The other 5% is genetic, but genetic is controlled by the epigenetics, which means outside the genetics, which is also caused by what you eat, what you drink, what you think, what you feel, what you believe, and what you breathe. All of these are contributing factors, which means 100% of all sickness and disease is under our control. There are no genetic diseases. only
But
exists
but
through constant.
if we break this down to its simplest form, what you're telling me is that if you're going to try to help somebody shrink their prostate, you've got to fix the pH and fix the circulation. Those are the two most important things. Is that right?
Well, the first one is get off the acidic diet. Stop eating.
Right.
I mean, you can't keep pouring more acid, into the body, and then think you're gonna solve that by taking, let's say proteins and electrolytes and what have you that are natural and common to the body, and supporting those systems, the alkaline buffering system, which is the main organ that supports that and all of our body fluids, which manages and maintain, much like if you hired a pool guy to take care of your pool, he's managing that by testing the pH. Well, that pool guy could do the same thing for you if he was managing the interstitial fluids. If he understood those, you'd do the same thing. The only way you can figure it out is to test it. The only way he knows that the pH is dropping is by visually looking at all the algae or mold or toxicity that's building up within the pool of water. Within our cells, we use microscopes because we're looking at cellular pollution, not macro pollution. But it's still the same thing. You've got to clean up the pollution, and that is the solution. But you can't do that unless you're circulating. And that's where the L-arginine max comes in.
Yeah.
And then you correct it by shocking the pH up to an 8.4 to literally cut the inflammation down. So this is how you resolve these issues, and it works.
But so the circulation part is to help you alkalize,
That's
to
correct.
Get rid of the
because
acidic waste.
because
Okay.
you could put something good into your body and it can turn bad, much like, if you have, let's say, a pool of water that's downstream from a manufacturing plant that's putting pollution in there, and you're coming in and filtering out the pool of water where the toxicity is seen, but within a matter of days it's polluted again because you really haven't stopped the source of pollution. So that comes down to understanding the pH miracle. By definition, is understanding the relationship between the cause and effect relationship. And this is not understood by medical science. I say that literally. I mean, it's a bold statement, and it sounds somewhat conceited. Like, why are so many doctors stupid? Because yet they're so smart. I call it being educated beyond your intelligence. And when you have so much knowledge, but the knowledge is useless because it really doesn't adjust the cause and effect relationship. What is the cause of inflammation? The environment. What's causing the environment to become toxic? What you eat, what you drink, what you breathe, what you feel, what you believe, what you think. All of these are contributing factors. EMF is a contributing factor. Chemical poisoning in your water and your food is a glyphosate. Ask Monsanto. They know what they're doing. They're trying to get more yield, by using pesticides and insecticides. But when people eat that, they get sick.
Can I ask you a couple more questions on this? Like, what is the black seed oil for? How will that
Well, the
help?
black seed oil has curcumin in it, and that's a very powerful antioxidant. It's probably the most powerful oil that one could take in order to here again, it's all geared towards that. And the other reason for using polyunsaturated oils like the omega-3, 6, and 9s, those which are unsaturated with what? Acid, hydrogen ions, is it bends, it folds, it forms within the gut, small intestine, it forms that bilipid membrane. That's the beginning of the embryonic cell that becomes the erythrocyte, or the red blood cell. But here again, embryonic stem cells are made out of, their membranes are made out of oils. But you have to have the flexible oils. So, borage oil, hemp oil, flax oil, black seed oil, carrot seed oil, broccoli seed oil. A lot of these aren't even in the stores. But these oils, particularly black seed, is probably one of the most powerful of them all. And that's why I suggest it.
And so would you recommend to my, to my dad, as well, to do the green drink, with the chlorophyll and the vegetable powder, or do we
Yeah,
not?
I would recommend to your father, if he was my father, and this is not medical advice, this is nutritional advice and advice, for cleaning up the internal environment, providing environments conducive for living, for thriving, is to change the diet. Number one, you got to change the diet. Number two, stop eating food. Let the blender do that. Let the blender chew it up, blend it, and juice it. In other words, your father needs to become like a little child again, a little baby, and go back to his beginnings, and then from there, then use foods in a concentrated state. That's called supplementation of nutrients, antioxidants, and anti-acids that will change the internal environment, open up the channels of elimination, start building healthy blood, and start regenerating the body cells as you're opening up the channels for elimination, eliminating metabolic and dietary waste as you're going through this process on a daily basis. Exercise is part of that. Exercise, the most important part of exercise is sweating. You can use infrared sauna. Infrared sauna is a simple way to exercise as it penetrates that frequency, which is at a band of 940 to 950. It penetrates the skin, and it activates the lymphatic system, and from there the body heats up, and then you relieve a lot of interstitial fluid, which helps. So sweating is really important. So some of the low impact exercise that I do recommend on that list is whole body vibration. Whole body vibration contracts and expands the cells, kind of like squeezing a sponge. You squeeze it, the water comes out. You contract the cell, the acids come out. But it's got to go from the interstitial fluids, because it goes from the intracellular fluid into the interstitial fluid, into the lymphatic system, which is the sewer system of the body, and then out through the pores of the skin or out through urination. So you have to hydrate. So that comes back to drinking. That question then comes up, what do I drink? What do you drink is high pH water, 10 or above, with a it's reduced water, which means it's saturated in electrons, and it can be measured. It's measured in millivolts at negative, 450 up to 750 millivolts, which means, okay, does that mean I can buy this somewhere? Well, you can buy it sometimes at a store. I'm not talking about any particular bottled water, because that's not necessarily electron rich. It may have a good pH of around 9 or 9.5, but you need to structure that water. So that may then come to the point where you make a decision of investing in your health by purchasing an electrical ionizer, that will do that for you, so you can always have that type of water. But it's good to filter the water from all of the different chemicals that are in the water. So pre-filter, an ionization, alkalization system, to prepare the water for human consumption.
So I assume I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. What we just talked about, would anything of change if he turns out to get a diagnosis that he has prostate cancer?
Yeah, then you really got to take this serious.
Yeah.
You really have to. I mean, if you want to survive cancer, I don't know of anything else that one can do that has the success, because it's based on principles of truth. Because cancer is not a disease of the tissues; it's a disease of the fluids of the body. Inflammation is caused by acidity. You can't separate the two words. If you have inflammation, you have acidity. If you reduce acidity, you don't have inflammation anymore. It's that simple. So everything that you take or put into your body, everything you bathe in, goes to the point of, is it contributing acidity, or is it, or protons? Is it stealing electrons from our body? Since we are electrical beings having a physical experience, not physical beings having a spiritual experience. That's not the case, or an electrical experience. Our bodies are electrical. They're electromagnetic. They run electricity. We eat food for its electrical potential. We don't eat food for calories. We don't eat food other than the physicality of constructing that. into embryonic cells and then into erythroblasts and then into erythrocytes. But these cells are the primary cells. Moses knew that. Muhammad knew that. I mean, they even talked about it. Muhammad said, "Don't you get it? Don't you understand that you're made out of one drop of blood?" You know, Moses or Hosea said that the life and death is in the blood. The blood is the foundational material that all other body cells are made from. Skin cells are made from blood. Heart cells are made from blood. Muscle is made from blood. They're not made from protein. Protein may be a constituent, but it's made from blood. And blood is made from chlorophyll, oil, water, and salt. Ask a cow. What is a cow? Cow eats salt. They're called salt licks. What does it eat? Grass. You know, what's that? Chlorophyll. It's identical to hemoglobin. You know, if you watch and eat like a cow, you're not going to become a cow. You're going to become a healthy human. You know, but, you know, cows go mad when they're being fed meat. That's why they called it mad cow's disease, because they go crazy. Because acids like sulfuric and nitric and phosphoric acid and uric acid literally destroy the essence of our life. And I know for a Texas cattle person, you know, he doesn't want to hear this. You know, I'm sorry. I'm just telling you the truth. You know, I mean, you know, we were raised on the ideology that meat is good for you. I mean, it's not good for the cow or the cattle. You know, they have to sacrifice their life to give up their flesh. That's not what it was designed. That all of our food should be for your meat. The color is green, and it's not that easy being green. Ask Kermit the Frog. He said it. You know, he sang a song. It's not that easy being green. It's not. But when you start doing it, it becomes easier. And those are the foods you begin to crave, because those are the foods that give you the life force energy, which is coming in the form of more electrical energy. And please don't eliminate salt out of the diet. And I've emphasized that in different forms. 4 salts is in a bicarbonate form, but the flavor salts you can spray, and those contain all of the electrolytes. But it's important to have salt.
What do you tell somebody whose doctor has said, you have high blood pressure, you can't have salt?
Well, I would say, okay, then you can't have salt either. You're not gonna, what do you, I mean, this is what I would say. I said, okay, if I came into critical care in an emergency room, tell me, doctor, what are you going to hook me up to?
An IV?
And what is in that IV?
Sodium bicarbonate?
No, it's salt. It's saline. It's a saline solution. So it's okay if I'm dying and it's in an emergency room and you're telling me not to eat salt. Who taught you that shit? I'm sorry. I mean, it's not even logical. I'm sorry, it's not logical. I mean, the body stays alive because it's bathed in salt. Could you imagine coming to the ocean fish? The fish came up to me. I'm the doctor for the fish in the ocean, and the fish come in. I said, well, you're going to have to get off the salt. I mean, what would happen if you put ocean fish on a salt-free diet?
Not good.
They would all die. The same thing happens to a human. When you go off salt, you die. Now, if you want to ask me what the antithesis of this, the antithesis of this, it's sugar. The doctor should say, get off the sugar, not the salt. You can have as much salt as you want. But if you start eating sugar, that's the acid. That's the acidic waste product. And this whole idea that body cells run on sugar, I mean, who made that up?
Yeah.
Some candy bar company.
Earlier when I mentioned that his feet were all swollen up, you jumped in your mind. It jumped you, I think, to a circulation problem. Is that what you said?
Well, that's circulation because of too much acid in the system from beef, chicken, pork, fish, vinegar, not lemons, but peanuts, corn, grains. You know, I mean, you have to eliminate all the acidic foods.
Got it. Okay, well, I'm feeling a lot better about it, Doc. I appreciate you taking the time to go over all this with me. I feel like I've about partially implemented this, but it's just like I got to keep going.
Well,
And
I mean, this is all new for you. I mean, you don't have to get down on yourself. You've already accomplished a lot. You know, you're feeling better. You're baked. I mean, you could write all the symptomologies you had when you came out here, and then you could start checking those off one at a time and saying, "Oh, guess what? You know, I still have to get up at night. I can solve that problem." That's what you're saying to yourself. I can solve that. You know, and then this is what I need to do. You know, and commit to it a little with a little more effort on this part. But it's all about education. You know, instead of medication. I mean, that's what I do. I'm not telling you to necessarily take any medications because I don't prescribe legend drugs. Now, why don't I? Because I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a scientist. You know, my degrees are in nutrition, in biochemistry. They're not in medicine. I didn't go down. Dr. Galena is a born again, you know, doctor. I mean, she's come off the reservation and she realizes how important it is to manage the internal fluids of the body. So when a doctor is doing that, you know, to try for the best interest of the patient, I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. That was the Hippocratic Oath, was to do no harm. And that applies, you know, to any doctor that's giving advice,
well,
to do no harm.
What you said earlier really hit the target when you said, yeah, you could do all this stuff, but if you don't know why you're doing it, you're not going to do it. And so that's really helped me get
Well, that's
this
why
list
in my,
together.
that's why in my email to you, my letter to you, is if you have any questions, you know, please give me a call. You know, I mean, you know, you've come to this particular point where you've given me a call and we're having this discussion. And now it's still up to you because guess what, Mike? It's your body, it's your life, it's your choice. And you can take all the things I've said to you. You still have to trust. You can trust, but you still need to verify. And that's what you've been doing. And you verified the efficacy of what I've told you to a certain level. You just take it up to the next level. I'm not saying you should distrust, you know, medical doctors. I mean, that's a personal choice. I mean, you should have a human right to decide to listen to that and implement it or not to. It's your free will. You can do the same thing with my suggestions, which is more non-invasive, you know, nutraceutical rather than pharmaceutical, education rather than medication, you know, education rather than vaccination. And it's not because if I thought they were good that I wouldn't recommend those things, but they're not, because I do understand what they really are and how they affect the interstitial fluids. So I'm not ignorant of this. So what's more powerful than a gun, even though a lot of people in Texas own guns, is a microscope. So if you're going out and buy a gun, you might as well get a microscope because you can look under the microscope and see what in the hell's going on. You know, rather than look down a barrel of a gun.
Give me some flavor of like, and I know you're not a medical doctor, so I'm not trying to get you to, you know, go down that path, but I just, from the people that you've given nutritional advice to, have you seen some pretty solid results of shrinking prostates?
100%. I mean, the only reason it doesn't work is because someone didn't do it.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it flat out works. Okay. But I can't force somebody against their own will, because you can take a horse to water, but you can't make that horse drink. That horse has to decide whether it's thirsty or not and ready to drink. And so the teacher shows up, you know, when the student arrives. The student comes to the teacher.
Yeah. Well, no, that it's that when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right?
Right. The teacher appears. Exactly. So, you know, I mean, I can appear at Zoom, but I can't teach somebody unless they ask to be taught, which is a perfect example of this discussion today.
Well, the biggest issue that I think most people have of implementing a program like you have is that unless you have an acute problem like I did with my back that reminds you every day that you are broken and you need to be fixed, it's easy to get lazy and say, oh, well, I don't need to be as strict or do all that. And that's kind of where I feel like I fell into, is that I fixed this program fixed my back. But then after I was better, I kind of ignored what y'all told me about my prostate and my thyroid and
Well,
the inflammation that I've got.
it's a holistic program, Mike. It affects every organ and every organ system. But could you imagine if Tom Brady took that advice? Well, I'm just only going to do it half-ass. I'm just going to do a little bit here and a little bit there. Do you think Tom Brady manages his life that way? No, he doesn't. That's why he's 43 going on 44 and still the number one player in the NFL. And he's playing with a bunch of punk kids.
Yep.
And he's laughing like you are. I mean, these guys,
yep.
They think they're big and tough and strong, and they can run fast and jump quick and whatever. Bottom line is that Tom Brady's proven them all wrong and proven all the doctors wrong about his level of endurance based upon his level of commitment. And his commitment to alkalinity is proven, for a tennis player on the tennis court, regardless of his age. Age is a limiting factor within our own cognitive function. I mean, how long can we live? Well, if you're asking Alexis Carrel, who received a Nobel Prize for longevity, he would say forever, if you manage and maintain the alkaline design of the body fluids. That's in 1904. So Alexis Carrel received a Nobel Prize as the father of modern day transplantation. He kept a heart alive outside of the body of a chicken for 20 years by changing the fluids of the body, doing the very same thing I'm suggesting to you. Now, you're not a chicken, but there are a lot of chickens out there, and there's a lot of people eating chicken. And I'm sorry, not only for the chickens, but for the people that are eating the chicken, because it's not going to get them where they want to be.
You know what's funny? That I read all these things that talk about where we're headed in the future and where things are going and this kind of scary place we're headed. And they're talking about how people will be forced to eat less meat and it will become more of a luxury item. And I'm thinking, I guess they don't realize that's actually good for them. That's not a bad thing. That's actually
good. I'll tell you what's bad is when you're compelled against your own will. In other words, somebody else is controlling that. And that's where, look, I'm happy for all of us to give it up. Never eat another chicken because that juice is nothing but your chicken urine. So when you're sitting down for turkey dinner and it's a juicy piece of meat, and just say, wow, that turkey urine is really tasty. Because that's interstitial fluid. That's urine. So I'm all for, saving the turkeys, the chickens, the pigs, the cows, I mean, look, that's, they have their life, and unfortunately they don't have any choice. Their free agency has been taken away from them. But the bottom line is we can choose not to eat meat. We can choose to move more to a plant-based alkaline. I call it an alkalarian lifestyle. Alkalarian lifestyle is here again, understanding this cause and effect relationship, which currently is not understood by medical savants. Tony Robbins realized that. So, I don't know if you see Tony here. I don't know if we can see that or not. Let's see if I can. Oh yeah, the book is called Sick and Tired.
Oh, okay.
It's called Sick and Tired. But anyway, Sick and Tired, Tony Robbins said this, if you are willing to commit to the time and energy now to understand Dr. Young's principles, you will experience a revolution in quality of your life. So even today, for 20 years, Tony's been teaching the principles of alkalinity that he learned because he was ready and I showed up. I think I got that right that time. So this is what Dr. Neil Solomon, who is the head of research at Johns Hopkins, Dr. Young may be on the threshold of a new biology whose principles could revolutionize the biology and medical worlds as we know them today. And the reason he said that was because he experienced what you experienced. You know, he came out for 3 days and got educated and was shocked at what he saw and so interested that he wanted to learn more. And so I was grateful for that introduction and to be able to meet Dr. Solomon. He was the only medical doctor that I know of. He was nominated for the Surgeon General of the United States of America by President Richard Nixon. He turned it down because he wanted to take the country more towards a natural, organic approach to healing rather than a medical petrochemical approach. And so he turned it down. But when he found my work, he just was so enthralled with it that he endorsed it. In fact, we worked together at the United Nations to educate and teach children around the world. And that's what I did in conjunction with him. And that was a beautiful opportunity. So education, not medication, education, not vaccination, education, empower yourself to understand how your body works. You know, read the pH Miracle book, get that into your father's hand, get that into anybody that needs help. Let them read that. Let them read Sick and Tired. Let them find out for themselves the truth of all things. Because if you find out the truth of all things, it's truly what will make you free. True, but
well, I sure appreciate it, Doc. I'm very energized again to implement what we just talked about. And I'll probably set another appointment with you, a regular appointment. I'll pay online or whatever to get that one done. But as another check-in here down the road with you on my progress, and I'm sure I'll have more questions, you know?
Well, you know, that's good. And you should have more questions. And I hope I have the answers. If not, we'll find out the answers, such as on Morgellon's dis-ease, because Morgellon's is a man-made microorganism. And somehow it's getting into our foodstuffs and into human bodies. So what the politics are behind that, I don't know. That's not my expertise. My expertise is identification and causation, and I want to help people thrive, not survive. So if you get a chance, watch the documentary. Thrive One has been seen by over 100 million people. It's the #1 documentary that's been produced, been seen by more people than any other documentary ever produced.
Thrive One.
Thrive One. Thrive Two is the sequel. The sequel incorporates what to do about it. And I'm happy to say that they've included Dr. Galina Magalko and her non-invasive medical diagnostic techniques, which are just fabulous. They're beautiful. They're very helpful for people to get all the information, but not just anatomy, but on physiology and functionality, biochemistry, hematology, you know, interstitial fluid biochemistry, intracellular biochemistry, vascular biochemistry. It's as you know, it's very in depth, and of course, it's like going to graduate school. And that's what a lot of people think when they say, "Geez, you know, this is like going," especially doctors. I feel like I'm in graduate school again. You know, I'm learning things that I've never heard before. But that's important, especially when you understand that in our society, it was only just a few years ago, the word interstitium, which I learned from the Germans in the 80s, the colloidal connective tissue of the shot is the interstitial fluid or the interstitium organ, which is now recognized as the largest organ of the body, no longer the skin, folks. So you need to do a little catch up there. But that's all. That's don't eat the ketchup, but catch with a C, not with a K. But that's what you need to do is educate, empower yourself, and do exercise your freedom to choose, and do stand up for that. Anybody that is hearing my voice, I say stand up for your rights. Don't allow any of our freedoms to be taken care of. This is why America was founded on the principles of true freedom, and that's the freedom that this is our body, our life, and our choice, and we're free to choose. Our free will is important. People sacrifice their lives to protect that freedom of choice, and we need leaders that are behind all that, not what I perceive is going on right now. But bottom line is eventually it'll all even out. People will come to their senses, but I just pray that that this will happen for America, and also for all humanity. People need to know that there is a cure for cancer. There is a cure for all sickness and disease. And the genesis of this begins, or the genesis of this is which means begin. The beginning of all this is in the interstitial fluids of the interstitium. And there's only two places you can go to get that: Nassau in Florida, or Houston, or in Los Angeles at the Universal Medical Diagnostics, which is Dr. Galena McKelvey.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah. So with that, look forward to talking to you again soon, and maybe I'll have a different hairdo behind me.
Well, I'm interested to see what y'all's research.
I mean, I can show you really quick. Let's see if I can do this here. I can show you really quick what healthy blood looks like. But that's what it should look like.
Yeah.
See, so this is when you're thriving. This is what blood should look like, even in color, even in shape, even in size, free from any pollution within the solutions. No crystals, no fibrin monomers, no clotting, premature. If you're clotting, then you're in a state of acidosis. And it's not supposed to show up in the blood, but this all begins in the interstitial fluids, which is somewhat like the septic tank of the human body.
Is that clotting kind of the stuff that you were showing me that starts holding up the flow of those cells? It's like,
well, it holds up the flow, but they can't travel into the capillaries. They can't give their oxygen. They can't differentiate into body cells. They can't release their waste carbon dioxide if they pick that up. They can't deliver that to the lungs because it has to go in single files, so they can't go in groups. And
the clotting is like congestion, right?
Yeah, well, pathological blood coagulation is congestion of the circulatory or the vascular fluids. Yeah, it's kind of like a sink that's backing up. If there's a clot in the sink, a blockage, then things start coming back up. Same thing in the toilet, and it's not a pleasant sight, but that's what happens when you see that evidence in the blood. Things are backing up from the interstitial fluids, because toxins flow from the blood to the interstitial fluid, to the lymphatics, and out through the orifices of the skin. It doesn't go backwards. So if it's going backwards into the blood, then you have blockages. So blockages, it could be stones, it could be undigested food, it could be
inflammation.
Yeah, it could be a lot of different things that are causing that blockage. Yeah. So with that, nice to talk with you, Mike, and hope to hear from you soon, okay?
Thank you very much, Doc. We'll talk to you later.
All right, all the best. Take care.
Bye-bye.
God bless you and your family. God bless America. God bless the state of Texas.
Amen.
We need all the help we can get right now.
We do.
All right, all the best. Take care.
Work out. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.